إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له، ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد، فقد قال جل وعلا في كتابه العزيز وفرقانه الحميد بعد أن أقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. من اهتدى فإنما يهتدي لنفسه ومن ضل فإنما يضل عليها ولا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى وما كنا معذبين حتى نبعث رسولا. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Allah Azza wa Jal within the Quran speaks about many nations such as the people of Quraysh, Thamud and Ad. But in particular, one of the nations which is very unique is the Israelites. And the reason being is they lived for a very long time, and there was many generations after generations within their time frame. And when you compare them to other nations such as Thamud and Ad, they were very different because they lived for a very long time. Such as nations like Thamud and Ad, they lived for 3-4 decades, and when they did not obey the messenger of the time, Allah Azza wa Jal destroyed them. And one of the similarities that you and I have compared to the Israelites is they had many different sharia, they had innovations, they had scholars amongst their nation, and their actions also brought about the fasad and the corruption of their time. And Allah Azza wa Jal, when He speaks about them, He addresses the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam regarding this nation in Surah Al-Isra. Now, one of the things that you and I have to understand is our deen and our religion teaches us compassion, how to look after the rights of our neighbors, how to look after the rights of my wife, my family, my parents. But there's certain delicate situation that would occur within our lives where no one will matter. It doesn't matter if my wife thinks this or if my wife thinks that, or even we have to pretend to an extent that my wife or my mother or my sister or my brother does not exist. And those are those situations where Allah Azza wa Jal mentions within the Quran, مَنِ اهْتَدَى فَإِنَّمَا يَهْتَدِي لِنَفْسِهِ. That person who has committed themselves to guidance has only done it for themselves. So there's certain things that will occur in my life, certain situations, where my wife will tell me, oh, your income is so low, why don't you just go into this type of business, why don't you go into that type of business? And she will try to convince you to bend and turn your direction towards something which is unlawful, which is haram. And let's face it, we all know that within our religion, there are just a few things that Allah mentions that are haram. Going into selling khamr, which is haram, eating pork is haram, indulging yourself in usury, and there's just a few things that you and I can put on the paper which is haram, and the rest of things are halal. It's just a number of few things. But you know what? Allah Azza wa Jal reminds us that that person who has committed themselves to guidance cannot look at their culture. At that moment, my culture doesn't matter. Who's getting angry, it doesn't matter. I don't have to compromise my deen because of what other people think, even if it's my own family members, even if it's my own children, even if it's my own parents. I cannot compromise and let Allah be upset with me by trying to please my own family. By trying to please my own family members and my loved ones, I cannot upset Allah Azza wa Jal at that time. And it doesn't matter what other people think, but it's irrelevant. You and I have to look at what Allah Azza wa Jal thinks. And the life which you and I live in, this life of social media, we love to broadcast, our lives. So this discussion or this new phenomenon comes to the table where you see many a times people go on social media and say that, I stopped going to that masjid because of these uncles. And after salah, they come to salah very regularly, but after salah they're outside the masjid and they're just gossiping and they're backbiting. Or some sister says, I stopped going to the masjid, or I stopped wearing my hijab because of such and such individual or such and such sister. They're all hypocrites, or they're all like this, or they're all like that. your statement must be justifiable, and I might agree with you that whatever these uncles are doing or whatever these sisters are saying or whatever they're doing is correct. They're actually gossiping and they're backbiting and they're indulging in haram, and all they're doing is just speaking bad about and ill about others. But that does not mean that I justify or tarnish my relationship with Allah because of what someone else did or what someone else has done with me. That is separate from my relationship with Allah with whatever someone else has done. And you and I have to question ourselves, is that what I will tell Allah on the Day of Judgment? That it was because of this sister I stopped praying. It was because of this uncle that I stopped coming to the masjid. It was because of that uncle or whatever they said to me, I stopped giving money to that masjid, or I stopped coming to that masjid for salah. And Allah Azza wa Jal in the second verse, or the second part of that verse, says, وَمَنْ ضَلَّ فَإِنَّمَا يَضِلُّ عَلَيْهَا. He reinforces this, because what is the opposite of guidance? The first part is what? مَنِ اهْتَدَى فَإِنَّمَا يَهْتَدِي لِنَفْسِهِ. He who has committed themselves to guidance has done it only for themselves. And the opposite is what? Who has gone astray or has not committed themselves to the guidance is already gone astray. But Allah reinforces this statement by saying, وَمَنْ ضَلَّ فَإِنَّمَا يَضِلُّ عَلَيْهَا. Whoever has gone astray has only misguided themselves. He's only harming himself. So you can't blame other people for your wrongdoing or your bad relationship with Allah. That's not an excuse that you and I can present to Allah on the Day of Judgment. So Allah Azza wa Jal clears this because of the blames and the excuses that people love to present. وَمَنْ ضَلَّ فَإِنَّمَا يَضِلُّ عَلَيْهَا وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. No person will carry out the burden of another person on the Day of Judgment. You are responsible for your own actions. And it's not about what my parents said to me, what my mother said to me. You know what is right, and you and I need to be responsible. When you and I are adults, you need to pray. It's not about, oh, my parents didn't tell me to pray, so that's why I don't pray. And what is this level of hypocrisy that you and I have within our communities? That when a child is 16, 17, 18, he can go up to his parents and demand for the car keys and go on the road and be responsible for other people's lives, right? When a child is crossing the street or parents are crossing the street, he doesn't care. He just goes through the yellow light or the red light at that moment. He can be responsible for another person's life. But when it comes to telling that child to pray, oh, he's only 16, 17. Oh, this is the West. What can we do? What West? The whole world is the West now. Everyone has an iPhone. Everyone knows what's Google. Everyone knows what's YouTube. Even the person who doesn't have a Google or iPhone is looking for an alternative to go on social media. So the whole world is the West to me. Right? It doesn't matter if you live in Pakistan or India, the whole entire world is the West. So this is just an excuse for us not to be responsible for our own actions. Because you and I love blaming other people, and we make that an excuse or ridicule that so that I don't have to perform my obligatory duties and my responsibilities that is upon my shoulder and build that relationship with Allah. And this is why Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. Allah never sends down His chastisement or His punishment until He has sent a messenger with the guidance. And this is the same issue that the Israelites had. وَمِنْهُمْ أُمِّيُّونَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ الْكِتَابَ إِلَّا أَمَانِيَّ وَإِنْهُمْ إِلَّا يَظُنُّونَ. Oh, it was the person who messed up on the Saturday sermon. It was the priest or the pastor or the rabbi. And that's why I'm not committed to this religion. That's why I don't pray. That's why I don't read Quran. Before this verse, Allah Azza wa Jal in Surah Al-Isra says, اقرأ كتابك كفى بنفسك اليوم عليك حسيبا. On the Day of Judgment, you will be given your book of deeds, whatever action you have performed. And Allah Azza wa Jal will say, اقرأ كتابك, read your own deeds. Whatever you did, read it for yourself. كفى بنفسك اليوم عليك حسيبا. You yourself will be sufficient as an accountant and an auditor against yourself. And how do you protect yourself on that Day of Judgment? Is the next verse, مَنِ اهْتَدَى فَإِنَّمَا يَهْتَدِي لِنَفْسِهِ. He who has committed themselves to guidance has only done it for himself, and he who has led themselves astray has only done wrong to yourself. وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. No one will be carrying another person's burden on the Day of Judgment. وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. In essence, Allah Azza wa Jal never displays any form of dhulm or oppression upon any people or any nation. This is a tendency that you and I have built within the mindset. And may Allah Azza wa Jal give us the ability to remove that tendency and be committed to the guidance of His deen, of His beloved Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us the ability to implement what has been said. Wa sallallahu wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. ألا إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له، ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك، وصل على المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات، وبارك على محمد وأزواجه وذريته. قال النبي صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم: أرحم أمتي بأمتي أبو بكر، وأشدهم في أمر الله عمر، وأصدقهم حياء عثمان، وأقضاهم علي، وفاطمة سيدة نساء أهل الجنة رضي الله تعالى عنها وعنهم. اللهم انصر المسلمين في كل مكان، اللهم انصر المسلمين في كل مكان، اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للقوم الظالمين، ونجنا برحمتك من القوم الكافرين. اللهم طهر قلوبنا من النفاق، وأعمالنا من الرياء، وألسنتنا من الكذب. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه، وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم اهدنا واهد بنا واجعلنا سببا لمن اهتدى. اللهم اعطنا ولا تحرمنا، اللهم زدنا ولا تنقصنا، اللهم زدنا ولا تنقصنا. اللهم استعملنا وتقبلنا لخدمة دينك، اللهم استعملنا وتقبلنا لخدمة دينك. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم، وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، وسلام على المرسلين، والحمد لله رب العالمين. أقم الصلاة.